coming up on Ag Day. It's Ag Week at the nation's capital, and the talk is all about trade.
We need to open these markets on the tariff and steel, on the aluminum and steel issue.
I talk with lawmakers about USMCA and China as the president weighs in.
China wants very much to make a deal.
We've been stuck with dealing with about a foot of snow and about 50 to 60 mile-an-hour winds.
All this as a major winter storm pummels the plains, bringing wind, rain, blizzard conditions, and flooding.
Ag Day, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Ag Day from our nation's capital. I'm Clinton Griffiths, and this week we've been spending time on the Hill with our friends from Missouri Farm Bureau. Every year, Missouri and other states send leaders and members to Washington with the purpose of speaking directly to lawmakers. This year, the list of issues may be somewhat different, but the importance of the message is just as sharp. And this year, that message starts with trade. We continue to watch negotiations between the U.S. and China for some sort of indication that there may be an end to this trade war. Betsy Gibbon has the latest from the Ag Day studios. Betsy.
Clinton, thanks. We'll check back in with you in just a few minutes. President Trump spoke about the ongoing trade talks with China, saying the U.S. is in a very good position as it negotiates with Beijing on a new trade agreement. The president suggesting China is anxious to make a deal because it has not been doing well.
I think President Xi saw that I'm somebody that believes in walking when the deal's not done. And, you know, there's always a chance it could happen, and he probably wouldn't want that. That could be a reason, but we can do it either way. We can have the deal completed and come and sign, or we can get the deal almost completed and negotiate some of the final points. I would prefer that.
We told you yesterday there were reports of China possibly purchasing 3 million metric tons of corn out of the Pacific Northwest. Now, so far, USDA has not provided evidence of that. But we do now have export numbers from Friday, March 1st through last Thursday. The numbers show China was the top buyer of soybeans last week, buying 1.7 million metric tons of the total 1.9 million sold. South Korea was the top buyer of corn, and Nigeria was the top buyer of wheat.
All right, thanks, Betsy. You know, while in D.C., a China trade deal is at the top of every list. Members here got a chance to hear from Ken Isley, the administrator of USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service. He leads nearly 100 offices around the world dedicated to expanding trade opportunities for American agriculture. Where do we sit right now as far as negotiations go, and how close are we?
Well, and that's been very transparent. The negotiations have been going on for a long time after the 232 and 301 tariffs were placed on China and the retaliation back against agriculture and other U.S. products by China. We've had negotiating teams going back and forth. We're currently down to working on specific language, but ultimately Ambassador Lighthizer, the President of the United States, are going to have to determine whether the deal is sufficient to move forward in that relationship.
China isn't the only trade deal being worked on here in Washington, D.C. At some point this year, Congress is expected to vote on the USMCA. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement still needs an up or down vote from both chambers of Congress. Now, I asked the chairman of the House Ag Committee about that vote. The administration is working on the USMCA. What do you like? Do you like the chances of that getting through the House?
Yeah, I'm supporting it. As soon as I told them when they started this, do no harm. And they came back with a deal that does no harm. Actually improves things a little bit. So I immediately, when I saw what it was, I came out in favor of it.
Great.
I did that so that I could provide some leadership on our side, hopefully bring people along to support it. But where it's at in terms of votes within the caucus, I can't tell you. All I can tell you is I'm for it, and I'm doing what I can to help get it passed. And I think it's not, you know, it's not nirvana, but it's an improvement.
Any idea on timeline of when that could happen, or do we know?
Well, Lighthizer was before our caucus this morning. He's getting some flack. You know, it's going to be, what it's going to be is when the chairman thinks he's got enough votes to bring it up. I don't think they want to bring it up if it's going to fail.
Several lawmakers met with President Trump at the White House this week. They talked trade with the president, specifically what it will take to get the new USMCA agreement passed through Congress and about getting metal tariffs removed. Among those in attendance, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa and fellow Republican Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri. I talked with Blunt following the meeting.
We need to open these markets on the tariff and steel, on the aluminum and steel issue. I think clearly understanding how many people there are that are dependent on having that a competitive product as opposed to people who make those two products in our country. And we continue to talk to the president about that. I would hope that now that we're moving forward with an agreement with Canada and Mexico, if tariff is a reason to get a country's attention you think is taking advantage of us, once we come to agreement, you would think that that would also be the time that you'd show every other country in the world that one of the benefits of agreeing to good trade deals with the United States of America is that policies like a tariff on steel and aluminum from your country would be able to be allowed to go away.
Yeah. Did you give any indication of how long, maybe till we might start to lift those? Do we have a timeline yet?
Well, we have a timeline for the vote. I think the timeline for the vote is that bill is going, that treaty is going to come to the Congress pretty soon. I think we feel like we need to get it done sometime in the next 100 days.
Betsy, the weather's not bad here in D.C., but it's been kind of ugly around the central part of the country.
Clinton, a massive winter storm is moving its way up north from the plains into the western Corn Belt. Eastern Nebraska and South Dakota receiving too much rain with nowhere to run off, creating flooding pastures and turning houses into lakefront properties. And check this out. High winds, some up to 60 miles per hour, blowing snow in the central and western part of the state, forcing its way into prime cattle country, pressuring producers to take action as many of them are in the middle of calving season. We talked with one rancher in Sully County, South Dakota.
There's some around my corrals that are probably 8 to 12 foot high for what there are, and we just had so much snow before. If you wouldn't have had a lot of snow on the ground, it wouldn't have been that big a deal, but there was just really no place for a lot of this stuff to go.
Finley says he is calving on his ranch. Luckily, he has a facility where he's monitoring some livestock about ready to calve.
Now, Betsy, I spoke with the head of the Army Corps of Engineers, and he too is watching this coming thaw in earnest.
Right now, I'm watching this major flood that's on the Ohio-Mississippi River system and proposed to come also out of the Missouri River system. It's a big flood. We've been over flood stage for over 3 months now, and the worst, I think, is yet to come with the rain systems and snowpack up north that still got to come down. 2011 was the flood of record, and we passed that flood safely.
As I mentioned, it's nearly 70 degrees here in Washington, D.C. ahead of that winter storm. Let's head back to the AgDay weather team for a look at today's crop comments.
Thanks, Clinton. While parts of the plains paralyzed in the wake of this massive late winter blizzard actually got a lot of rain. This video shared on Twitter by a farmer in Nebraska. What you're looking at, he says, is supposed to be his field. Just water now as far as the eye can see. Flash flood warnings were put up for several towns along the Platte River in Nebraska. The storm knocked out power to tens of thousands of homes and businesses across that area, closing hundreds of miles of highway, stranding thousands of drivers and shutting down airports. That's an amazing storm, both on the cold side and the warm side. And it's still causing some wind, as you can see right there, across the plain states, northern plains into the Great Lakes. And as we head through the day today, that will continue across that area. Also the western Rio Grande into southern New Mexico, southern Arizona, pretty windy. Tonight things will let up in the northern tier of states. The eastern Great Lakes into New England will continue to see some wind during the day tomorrow, and a little bit more wind coming in with another system into the northern plains. We'll have your forecast coming up in just a little while, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Traders trying to decide whether they're bearish on beans and bullish on corn. We'll ask that question coming up in analysis. And later, there's plenty of talk about finding common ground here in Washington. Could infrastructure be that possibility? We'll ask one of the leads on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee about that. On any given day, we report on China buying soybeans or possibly corn, but the market just doesn't seem that interested. Why is this happening? We ask the question in today's analysis.
Here now with Tommy Grisafi of Advanced Trading. Tommy, when I talk to a lot of analysts that we have on the show, I ask them about what crop are they most bullish about or friendly about, what crop are they most bearish about. And really the commodity most bullish about, corn. Commodity they're most bearish about, most analysts, soybeans. However, prices have not responded that way.
Yeah, so the soybean thing's not a secret. We know we have too many. No matter who crunches the numbers, whether they say we have 800 million or 1.1 billion, there's too many soybeans, but yet the soybean price is pretty much the same for several months, actually. We have say a 30-cent range, and then just quietly out of nowhere, wheat broke 50, maybe 60 cents as we speak now. Corn quietly slid down 20 cents, and so when the analysts tell you there's a bullish story in corn, they're not making that up. I mean, with the numbers, the way they look, if we had any type of planting problems with corn or then a weather problem or a pollination problem, we can have an incredibly bullish corn market. But we walk in a scenario like that every year where if we have a weather problem, we could have a market. We also, maybe the market just doesn't care right now. It just doesn't care what the, it's just not looking forward. It's just like, here, the farmers have too much grain, they need to sell grain, and they're selling it.
Yeah, so soybean prices where we are, a lot of analysts surprised that we're at these levels. However, do you think a China deal is priced in? I mean, when we're at the levels we are today, do you think we can go a lot higher if we get something done with China?
Oh, we could, but we can't make up for lost marketing cycles. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we've missed a good chunk of our cycle here of selling China grain. So I don't know how we make that up. There's just a physicalness to when analysts say the price of soybeans are okay, they're talking about the Board of Trade price. They're not talking about the price in North Dakota, which would be your basis. So depending on where you sit in America might be where you think the price is okay. Futures-wise, we're fine. It could be better. Cash-wise, it's a disaster.
All right, Tommy Grisafi joining us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on Ag Day.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Grisafi at 800-664-4383.
Spray for as low as $3 an acre with a new Apache sprayer. Talk to your local Apache dealer or run the numbers at apachesprayers.com/return.
Welcome back to this special edition of Ag Day from our nation's capital. Mike, it was beautiful weather in Washington on Thursday, bright, sunshiny day, but it wasn't that warm everywhere.
No, Clinton, it definitely wasn't. Obviously, we had that major blizzard in the northern and western plain states. That is finally moving away, and that's the good news, no doubt. There's also good news on the drought monitor. I mean, there's very little drought around the lower 48. Still some in the northern portions of New Mexico, and that's about it. Now, you can see a month ago, there was a little bit more there, some in Oregon. We've continued to eat away at that over the last 4 weeks, and you can just see the orange and red areas shrinking up every week just a little bit. We are starting to see right at the tail end here just a little bit of drier conditions, eastern South Carolina, eastern Georgia, southeastern Florida as well, which we'll have to watch, and we have to watch these areas in Texas as well that have gotten a little drier over the past few weeks. All right, let's go to the weather map. There's that massive storm system. Really, most of the effects are now into eastern Canada. There are still some showers and thunderstorms along the first cold front. Rain and snow along the second cold front. As we head through the day today, then you can see both of those systems moving east. Lots of high pressure around the plain states and the west. We do have another weak system diving in out of central Canada as we head into the first part of the weekend. There's 7 a.m. tomorrow. You can still see some snow showers, some of these lake effects, some of these along this cold front in the Great Lakes areas. Other than that, there's not a lot going on. A little bit of rain down toward Houston and south of New Orleans. and a few scattered showers and thunderstorms in Florida. As we head through the day, though, we will see some light snow, maybe mixed with rain, moving through the northern plains as that system kind of dives toward the southeast. All right, checking out precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours. You can see most of the activity was before this last 24 hours because it hasn't been nearly as heavy, thank goodness, as it was across the plain states. But adding in the next 36, you really don't see that we're adding a whole lot of moisture in most places, just a few spots around the lower 48. As far as snow is concerned, well, most of the snow occurred before the past 24 hours as well, but adding in the next 36, you can see we'll add just a little bit in some of the northern tier of states. Checking out temperatures, it's going to be kind of chilly for this time of the year from coast to coast, except the southeast as we head through the day today. But then tomorrow morning, you can see lots of 20s and 30s across a good chunk of the country, even down into northern Mississippi, northern Texas, and still chilly for this time of the year tomorrow. There's the jet stream. You can see the trough in the Great Lakes in the northeast gets reinforced as we head through the first part of next week. But as we head through the week, a ridge comes eastward, should warm things up in the middle of the country by later next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Walla Walla, Washington. First of all, partly sunny, rather cold, high of 42 degrees. Poplar Bluff, Missouri, mostly cloudy and chillier, the high of 49. And finally, Binghamton, New York, a morning shower, then partly sunny and turning colder, high 63 and falling.
All right, when we come back, a look at the chances of passing infrastructure legislation. And later, some final thoughts from D.C., a little farm sense from the Washington Mall.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
While the majority in the House and Senate are now split, one question that keeps coming up is what, if anything, will get done in the next year and a half? One answer that keeps bubbling to the surface: infrastructure. From locks and dams to rural roads, bridges, and waterways, by all accounts, it's an investment America needs to make in order to stay competitive on the world stage. Now, I asked Representative Sam Graves of Missouri about the chances of getting infrastructure passed by this latest Congress.
As we talk about things we could accomplish in 2019, is that still something that is on the table?
Yes.
Do we know?
Yes, it is on the table. I think we have a narrow window. If we don't have something done by the August break, I don't think anything will get done, just simply because the progressives on the other side of the aisle, they don't want to see the president get a win in any way, shape, or form. So they're not going to allow it to go past August, I don't think, if they allow it to go, before that. We can get it out of committee because we have a very bipartisan committee. It's getting it across the floor that's different, or even just scheduling for floor time.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest questions I've heard from folks is, okay, this could be a big bill. We're talking a lot of money to do the things that we'd like to do in this country. Do we have any idea how we fund it?
Well, we don't necessarily, we're working on that. We don't necessarily have an idea how we fund it yet, and we don't know what the size is. Personally, I think it's got to be, at 500 billion or less, south of 500 billion. There are some that talk $1 trillion. I don't think we can ever get there to $1 trillion, but we have to figure out how to fund it, and we're looking at, everything's on the table.
When we come back, a little farm sense from the nation's capital. Welcome back to Ag Day. It's no secret that wins in Washington are hard to come by. Passing truly impactful legislation is rare. Passing it via compromise, even more so. Now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe our founders wanted it to be hard to create laws and regulations, or maybe we've just forgotten how to work together for the good of the country. Your side may not get everything they want, but neither should the other. There has to be compromise. Now, I've thought for a long time that maybe what folks in Washington really need are a few chores. Rather than fancy dinners, maybe someone needs to water the cattle along the Potomac. Don't forget to bust the ice in the winter and string out a little cake along the Washington Mall. Maybe before heading up the hill, members need to till the back quarter, rip the White House lawn, wean hogs on Pennsylvania Avenue, or top-dress wheat outside the Supreme Court. I think one thing that makes farmers productive is the fact that their lives are built without the option of accomplishing nothing. Talking won't keep you in business, arguing won't plant the crop, and cattle, unlike legislation, need daily care. Now, don't get me wrong, there are good, hard-working folks in D.C. dedicating their lives to serving our nation, and I salute them. I thank them every day for the freedoms and country we enjoy. But it's awful easy to take our blessings like an abundant food supply for granted when you aren't the one doing the work. As I watch advocates storm the Hill, I wonder how many times their message rings true for legislators who live and work in America's city streets. Their realities are different than ours. Their chores and priorities not driven by growing and feeding a hungry nation and world. But maybe a few trips to the feed bunk each morning, shelling corn on Independence Avenue or mucking out stalls at the Smithsonian might put some of that work into perspective. Working on legislation, now that would be the easy part. And that's going to wrap us up for this morning's edition of Ag Day. From all of us here, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.